Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And I think this week we're going to go straight into CD of the week. As I said, I decided to bring that one back temporarily just to mix it up. And this
They're
is
going to start thinking you have stock in physical media or something.
Well, I don't know about stock in physical media. I have a lot of physical media. And in fact, my storage space that I built in a cupboard, which holds 960 CDs, is almost completely full.
See, guys, I mean, they're going to think Tim's got some RCA stock from 1997. That's skating money. All right, back into CD of the week.
Yeah, anyhow, so I'm going to give this CD as CD of the week. And this is a tribute album, if you will, and it's called Remachined. It's a tribute to Deep Purple's Machine Head. Now, Machine Head is a very famous album by the band Deep Purple. And what this is an album of the songs on that album, but performed by other artists. Now, it has some interesting artists on here. There's actually two versions of Smoke on the Water, and I'm going to cover the second one in a second. But there's one on here which is featuring Carlos Santana. So if you ever wanted to know what Carlos Santana sounds like playing Smoke on the Water, this is the album for you. It's kind of wah-wah-tastic, and I don't know if he's actually playing the main riff, but it's an interesting listen, it's fair to say.
I would like to just hear it so I could say I heard it. Okay, what's the other one?
Well, you've got Black Label Society on here. You've got a super group, which is Joe Elliott, Steve Stevens, Duff McKagan, and Matt Sorum doing Never Before. You've got the ever-present Joe Bonamassa and Jimmy Barnes doing Lazy. You've got Iron Maiden doing Space Truckin'. And you've also got Metallica doing When a Blind Man Cries. Now, I believe When a Blind Man Cries isn't actually on Machine Head, though it was part of the same recording session. So it got shoehorned on there.
Does the Iron Maiden song sound exactly like I think it sounds? If I had to picture it in my mind?
Yeah, it sounds like Iron Maiden, but they're doing a Deep Purple song. Basically. But it must be said, the highlight of this whole album is Chickenfoot doing Highway Star. Now, are you familiar with Chickenfoot?
Very vaguely. They weren't a huge hit here, but I have heard some of their songs. Okay,
so those who don't know, Chickenfoot, it was a supergroup of sorts. It was Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers on drums, and it was Sammy Hagar of Van Halen fame on vocals. You also had Michael Anthony of Van Halen fame on bass. And then you had guitar virtuoso Joe Satriani on guitar. So it's sort of half Van Halen-ish. But their version of Highway Star is really, really, really good. And the interesting thing is that Satriani is playing all the Hammond organ parts on his guitar. I think he has one of those electro-harmonics pedals that makes your guitar sound like a Hammond organ. But it sounds really good. And this is a live performance. And if I had to pick out that being the track, the main track on the album, that's worth the price of admission just to hear that. It is absolutely fantastic.
So is this a more recent album? Because wasn't Chickenfoot a thing in the 2000s?
Well, this is from 2012. And Chickenfoot, I mean, I was aware of Chickenfoot before I started living here. So I think it was 2009, 2010, around that era is when Chickenfoot got together. And they released, I believe, 2 albums, did a couple of tours. I never actually got to see them, but certainly the live footage I've seen and the albums I've heard, it sounded pretty good. It sounded like Van Hagar, but sort of bit different.
I mean, that's fair. The only song I really remember is there was a song called Bigfoot. And that one rings a bell to me from Chickenfoot. But anyway.
Yeah, and they had a song called Oh Yeah, which I think was probably the ROV, Rock of Virginia song that radio station would play once an hour when it was out. But, it was a good song. Though this does have a downward part of this album. The Flaming Lips do a version of Smoke on the Water, the second version of Smoke on the Water on this album. And I want to say it's terrible, though it might be someone's cup of tea. But no, I'm just going to say it. It's terrible.
Why do you think it? What is it about it that makes it terrible? Is the sound just off, or is it just poorly put together?
Well, I mean, most of the people here are interpreting the songs much how they are, but they're putting their, spin on it to some degree. They've tried to reinterpret the song as something completely different, and it really doesn't work.
Not for a song like Smoke on the Water too, because it's such a known song. Like you can't revamp something. You know what I mean, Tim? That like you can't rewrite that wheel.
Exactly. So I mean, it's so iconic. You can't mess with it really. So, I mean, you can skip track 6. And in fact, I did. I was a minute into it, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to listen to that next.
All right. Well, there's Tim's advice on the CD of the week.
Yeah, skip one of the tracks. All the others are great. There you are. That is my tip for CD of the week.
Somebody's going to be like, oh, Tim said skip 6, and they're just going to keep going.
Exactly. But anyhow, that, ladies and gentlemen, is your CD of the week. That's Remachined, a tribute to Deep Purple's Machine Head.
Yay!
All right. So this week, it is Joy's turn to pick the topic. And as ever, I don't know her topic. So, Joy, over to you.
So the reason I made the comment about the physical media, and the reason I told Tip before we started this episode is dedicated to him, is we're going to talk about the top songs of all time that sold the most singles of physical copies. So it's like the top songs, the top 10, and the physical copies. I mean, CDs or vinyl, tape, whatever you want to say it. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking of Tim when I came up with this. And that's why I said they're going to think Tim owns stock in like RCA or Sony or something. So that's where it all comes full circle. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I pulled up just the top selling singles of all time. Most of these are pretty obvious, but I will say there is one on here that kind of blew my mind. And upon looking on YouTube, there has been a resurgence of this song. It is not Kate Bush, everyone, or Metallica. Just to clarify, we're not Stranger Things again here. But there's one that I find very interesting that I would not have expected. So the first one is really obvious. And I think that like everybody kind of knows this because Christmas music sells so well. It's Bing Crosby's White Christmas is the highest grossing number 1 single that's sold in physical media.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me because I think Bing Crosby's White Christmas is probably one of those songs that has been on everything from like wax. Well, I don't know about wax cylinder, but certainly on a 78, it's probably on a 45, it's probably on a 33 album, on a cassette, a CD, a mini. You know, it probably has gone from 78 up to streaming and every point in between.
Well, the song came out in 1942, so Tim's probably right on the money there. And it's also used in every major movie that somehow it starts snowing on Christmas, right, Tim? So not only has it been on its own versions of physical media, but it's on the soundtracks of movies, TV shows, blah, blah, blah. And I don't really know a more iconic song when it comes to Christmas.
No, and that song has been remade by lots of different artists over the years, but the Bing Crosby one is, of course, the one that everyone remembers.
His voice is just so dynamic and so pretty and so soft, and I've talked about it many times on this podcast, but the people who sell or the people who you remember are the people who have very easygoing voices. And I talk about it's gentle in the ear. We like that sound. Now there are like your Aretha Franklins and stuff, but they can do the easy on the ear, but they can also do. But the ones that like the Dollys and the Bing Crosbys and even maybe like the other day, Tim, I forgot to tell you this story. We played a game. Charlie was playing songs that he was having me guess them. And a song came on that I had never heard before, but I got it because it was Al Green. And he was like, well, how did you know it was Al Green? I was like, it's his voice. He only has an Al Green voice. Like, who else has that voice? And so it was just funny because he was like, how do you know these people? And then there was another one where it was like a 90s R&B song I didn't recognize. And I went, well, it's probably either Monica, Brandy, Tony Braxton, or Aaliyah. And guess what it was? I was like, if you name those 4 people, you're bound and determined to find one of them. But back to the point is that's how Bing Crosby is. Like or Bing Crosby. His name's not Ben, everyone. It's Bing. But yeah, it's that voice. It's just so soft. It's so velvet. So that's why his version, I think, stands out because it's almost like he's telling you a story.
Exactly. And do you know what's funny? You're saying about how voices can be distinctive and how you can hear a random song and you know that, say, for example, it was Al Green.
Yeah.
I find the same thing with guitar players. Now, when I was listening to this album earlier on, I had it on and, I was paying half attention to it at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then my ears pricked up and I was like, that's Joe Satriani. And it's like his tone and his phrasing is so distinctive. I knew immediately it was him. And there's lots of guitar players where you only need to hear a few notes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, it's Kirk Hammett, or oh, it's BB King, or whatever. It's you know, if you're tuned into that, if you're tuned into a voice that you like, or tuned into a guitar player that you like, what they do is so unique. It's so easy just to immediately identify them.
Exactly. And that's what I was getting. It was just funny because Charlie doesn't have that ability when it comes to music. I mean, he does to a point, maybe if it's like Tenacious D. But outside of that, he does that with TV shows and movies, which I can't do, right, Tim? Like, you put an actor on stage, I'm like, yeah, he was in a movie once 4 years ago, but I don't know his name. Like, I just don't have that ability. So I find that very interesting. But anyway, so the next one is somebody that I could recognize their voice from a million miles away. It is Sir Elton John. It's Something About the Way You Look Tonight / Candle in the Wind, 1997.
Yeah, that was a tribute track for Princess Diana. And I think the Candle in the Wind was the A side, and I think the other track was the B side. And I remember when that came out, because you could buy it on a CD single, and I think all the money went to a charity at the time. I forget which charity it was, but it wouldn't surprise me in the realm of physical media that one sold really well.
Yeah, so of course, I mean, it was one of the highest grossing songs of all time. So Tim's right on the money. So basically, it was priced as double. Okay, so double side A was Something About the Way You Look, and then B was Candle in the Wind. So you were close. You just had it backwards.
Okay.
And it was a tribute signal. It was a signal, Tim, calling everyone in the UK, I don't know, single for Princess Diana. And, you know, it's a rewritten version of the 1973 song. So that's the original. And it was produced by Sir George Martin. So that's a pretty famous name. But, of course, Elton and Bernie wrote it together. And it is right behind Bing Crosby's White Christmas as the highest grossing single of all time. Yeah, it's certified diamond. And it was one of those songs that went universal. Like, everybody in the world couldn't get away from this song based off what I was reading. And I'm sure even in the UK, it was probably worse with the Diana thing.
Oh, yeah. It was. I think it was number one in the UK for weeks and weeks and weeks. And, you know, it got to the point where literally you couldn't escape it because it was being played so much. And, you know, it was an odd moment in UK history when Princess Diana died. And a lot of people were talking about her, and there was TV programs, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, on the radio, you had this song, which was a tribute. The interesting thing from a physical media perspective, I remember that Elton John only signed one copy of the CD single, and then it was auctioned off for some ridiculous amount of money. And he made a point saying, I will never, ever sign any more of these. I'm signing one, and this is the one that if you want to buy at auction, this is the one you need to buy.
I mean, that makes sense, though, if you wanted the proceeds to go to a very specific thing, right? Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, when it says Goodbye Norma Jean in the original, they're obviously talking about Marilyn Monroe. The song was originally Barry's to like tribute to Marilyn. And so then when Diana died, he uses a tribute to Diana. They rewrote it. Some people call it Goodbye England's Rose. I've heard that before, too, or something like that.
Yeah, the first line is Goodbye English Rose instead of Norma Jean. Yeah.
So but I've heard it use that name instead of the Norma Jean. So people refer to it, that song. Apparently it's English Rose, not England Rose, everyone. I'm sorry. The British person would know. But anyway, so that's what that song is. It's not shocking to me, though, because if you use, and this is it's going to sound bad, Tim, and I don't think Elton John meant it this way, but like if you use whatever's going on in the world at that moment to produce your song, of course it's going to sell. Right?
Sure, but equally, Elton John didn't make any money out of it. He
put it all
released that song because, you know, he was friends with Princess Diana, and the money, he knew it was going to sell a lot, and the money was going to be donated to a charity. I forget which charity it was, but it was all the proceeds went off to a charity.
Let's see if I can see it. Let's see. Everybody, I'm reading on the internet to see if I can find what charity it was. Candle in the Wind, U.S. single charts, certified diamond, background, fashion designer.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was an AIDS HIV charity.
Concert for Diana. Can't find anything that specifically says. We'll look it up later and I'll tell you guys. I'll make sure we put it on the chat. I'm sure there's some specific thing, but I'm not seeing it. I don't want to hold everybody up. Sure. All right, Tim. So the next one is somebody that I think Tim has some, like he's like a cousin or some weird illusion that he's part of the band or something. I don't know, everybody. You'll know why I said that in a second. It's Mungo Jerry. Don't you like know somebody who was in the band or played with somebody who was in the band or something?
No, Mungo Jerry. This is my connection to Mungo Jerry. My great uncle used to live in Germany. And the first time I ever went abroad was to visit my uncle in Germany. My granddad went on a coach and we went from Victoria Station in London and then we got the ferry across into France and we drove through the night. And I've spoken about how I had a cassette which had Nana Cherry on one side and Guns N' Roses on the other side. This is how can we put it? No Name Music Cast folklore, something that we've discussed many times.
So we're going to start referring to it as good word, Tim.
Yeah, but where my uncle lived was near a town called Lübeck, not Lübeck, which is somewhere different, but Lübeck. And it was not far from Lübeck is where Mungo Jerry, the singer of the band Mungo Jerry, lived. Oh. And that's it.
Oh,
we drove through there a few times with my uncle, and he says, "Oh, Mungo Jerry lives in this town." And I went, "Oh, really? That's interesting."
I thought there was something cooler than that, Tim. I led that up better than it should have been.
No, right. I didn't jam with Mungo Jerry at the Red Line in Twickenham or anything like that.
Darn, I had hopes for you, Tim. Of course, the song is In the Summertime because what other song would it be?
Exactly. With the famous line, "Have a drink, have a drive. Come and see what you can find." That didn't age well.
Well, I think about the whole thing about the song doesn't age well. He's like, if her daddy is rich, take her out for a spin. If her daddy is poor, just do what you will, or whatever it is he says. That's horrible, Tim. The song aged terribly.
Maybe we need to do an entire episode on why In the Summertime by Mungo Jerry is no longer cool. We'll analyze each line and go through it line by line and be like, no, absolutely, no, oh no.
But I mean, if her daddy is rich, take her out for a spin. I get it. If her daddy is poor, just do it. What kind of line is that? I don't know what Mungo Jerry was doing, but the chops got to his brain or something. For those who've never seen him in person, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was the chops probably, but I mean, you know, this was a different time, Joy.
I don't know. Even then, it might have been a little controversial, Tim. It's very blunt. Now I kind of like sitting here thinking, what are the rest of the songs say? But apparently, I mean, I will say I like the song, and the sound is fantastic. But it kind of goes in what Tim was saying a minute ago. It's got that kind of poppy, very summery kind of vibe. So it's probably been used in like 40,000 movies, soundtracks, things like that. So I can imagine it's probably been on a lot of different types of physical media as well.
I would have thought so. I mean, that one would have never hit a 78, for example, but it would have been on a 7-inch single, an album, and, you know, cassette, and maybe even an 8-track.
I will say it has a cool sound, not to defend the lyrics, as I bluntly said a minute ago, but it does have a really cool sound, and I've listened to it many times. I mean, that kind of like, it's like a maraca kind of thing, whatever they're shaking to give that sound.
Yeah, it's not conventional percussion on that track, but it really does work.
It does, and it gives a very summer Caribbean, maybe kind of Jamaican, because Shaggy, as in Shaggy from the 90s and early 2000s, did a version of it.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've ever heard it.
I didn't know that. I know Shaggy did an album with Sting about 5 years ago. I do know that.
Well, I also found out recently, well, no, it wasn't recent. It's been a while, but did you know that, like, Michael Jackson was a huge fan of Shaggy, and It Wasn't Me was one of his favorite songs.
Oh, really?
So when you watch that one, I think it's the 25th anniversary where they have Michael in the audience and everybody's doing his songs or whatever, the one with Britney Spears I've talked about a few times. Mm-hmm. Shaggy comes on and performs and they talk about it. It was one of his favorite songs, which I love that song too, but you don't really think of Michael Jackson as a Wasn't Me, Mr. Boombastic kind of thing.
I don't know. Maybe he was a fan of Shaggy way back when he was in Scooby-Doo, for example.
Or maybe he just liked it. And, you know, Tim, like Tim said, you like what you like and you don't have to justify it.
Yeah, there we are. I mean, as I've said before, I can listen to like metal and I can listen to, I don't know, Dolly in the same setting. And it's all good.
mean, it is what it is. All right. So the next one is another one that I think falls with what Tim was saying about the White Christmas. There's been many different variations and media processes of the song. It's Rock Around the Clock, Billy Haley. Why can't I say that? I want to say Holiday. That's not his name, everyone. Bill Haley and the Comets.
Yes, Bill Haley and the Comets, Rock Around the Clock. Again, something that would have probably been pressed up on 78. It would have been too late for a wax cylinder. I don't think any of these songs that you're going to talk about today would have been pressed on wax cylinder, but certainly 78, yes, Bill Haley in the Comments. The interesting thing about that song, did you ever watch the TV show Happy Days?
Oh, yes. My mom was a big fan.
Yeah, so Happy Days, which is about life in the 50s, and it was made in the mid to late 70s, and it had the Fonz in it and all that kind of stuff. But the very first season of Happy Days, Rock Around the Clock was the opening theme. And it was only later on, from I think season 2 or even season 3, you got into having that classic Happy Days theme.
Yeah, the one Monday, Tuesday, Happy Day, which where me and Tim live, there's a McAdoo's restaurant near us. It's not, I know McAdoo's sounds weird, but that's how we say it here. Have you heard the Monday, Tuesday, McAdoo's song, Tim, like on the radio? There's like a jingle where they steal the Happy Day song.
No, I haven't heard that. Well, legit, as you know, as I announced on this podcast, I started discovering a local radio station called The Bear. Was it 105.4 The Bear or something like that? And they play pretty good rock music, and they play actually some newer rock music. It's good. But I cannot stand their morning show. It's one of these syndicated morning shows. It's like, I think it's called Rover's Morning Glory. It's
a morning zoo.
It's a horrible morning zoo program. And what happens is I get in my car, and if The Bear is programmed in there, and I turn the car on, before I've had a chance to plug my phone in and the Apple CarPlay thing to kick in, I hear this Rover's Morning Glory, and I just want to turn it off. So I have not been listening to The Bear at all because I get subjected to this morning zoo and I just want to turn it off as quick as I can. So I've got my car currently set to auxiliary. So when you crank the car, it's silence until I plug the phone in and then the CarPlay thing kicks in.
I can't blame you on that one. The only reason I know it, and people kind of forget this, I grew up in this area, and McAdoo's has been around since I was in like high school, right, Tim? So, and then where I'm from, Gay Lakes, Virginia has the McAdoo's, Radford has the McAdoo's, Christiansburg, it's a pretty popular restaurant in this area. It's in Southwest Virginia. It's not a huge franchise, but whenever it came into town, they were advertising it really hard when I was in high school because it was new. So I used to hear it all the time. But yeah, there's a McAdoo's version of Happy Days. I've
never heard that. Actually, I have McAdoo's News. That could be a jingle. McAdoo's News.
What's your news?
And this will be really good for our listeners in I don't know, Europe, Australia, Canada, Philippines, wherever. But there's a brand new McAdoo's location in Vinton.
Well, everybody stop the president. I mean, that's good news for me if I'm ever there because McAdoo's is pretty good.
Yeah, we went for a trip the other week. We went to the D-Day Memorial in Bedford, Virginia. And to get to it, you go through Vinton, which is the other side of Roanoke. And we was driving along the road, and I was like, is that a brand new McAdoo's? And it was a brand new McAdoo's. I couldn't believe it. It's like, we now want to go to Vinton again just to eat in the brand new McAdoo's so I can eat the same thing I eat every time.
Somebody listening to this podcast thinks we're sponsored by McAdoo's. Just to clarify, we are not sponsored by McAdoo's. Me and Tim just like their food. And as vegetarians, there's a lot of good options for us.
Well, it's all those sandwiches, isn't it? You can custom make anything you like. And I said, I do like that Fiesta salad bowl thing. That is by far my favorite.
See, I like their quesadillas. I'm a pescatarian technically, so I still eat fish. Tim does not. So sometimes I get the fish tacos. Sometimes I get the quesadilla. Sometimes I get the Fiesta bowl. But there's like the Dirty Harry, which is also they've got like a whole like cheese-based sandwich, or you can just build your own. I mean, it's weird. Okay, let's get along because they're really going to think we're lying about not being sponsored by McAdoo's. All right, the next one is a song that will not shock anyone at all. And if you lived anywhere in the last 40 years, it is Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You.
Yeah, so that was around the time when probably vinyl records were not being made because it was mid to late 2000s or probably towards the end of the 2000s, well late 2005 to sort of 2010 was about when this vinyl revival thing kicked back off again. What year was that?
So this was in 92 when The Bodyguard came out. So
yeah, so I would imagine by that point records were probably not being pressed. So this was probably a physical release, yes, but it would have been cassette and CD, I would have thought.
I would think, yeah, it was based off of what I'm reading here. You know what's interesting about this, Tim? I have never heard this, but upon doing my research, you know the song What Becomes of a Broken Hearted, which is one of my favorite songs ever?
Mm-hmm.
It's apparently in, so those who don't know this, let me clarify this for our listeners. Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, it was in The Bodyguard, the movie, as a soundtrack for The Bodyguard. That's what it became famous for. Anyway, she did a version of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You for the movie, but she was originally supposed to record Jim Ruffin's What Becomes of a Broken Hearted for The Bodyguard as the lead single. And I find that very interesting because that would have actually been cool to hear because I love that song. And I think it would have been cool to hear Whitney Houston's version of it.
I wonder if there's a demo of it anywhere or something like that, or it appeared on a album, like a posthumous album of Whitney Houston's.
I mean, maybe we could probably go on a hunt. I'll give it a goog here shortly, but it does say, so Houston's co-star Kevin Costner recommended I Will Always Love You based off the Linda Ronstadt version. So for people who don't know, Dolly wrote it. Linda Ronstadt did a version in the 70s. Called Prisoner in Disguise, and upon singing, her record company did not feel a song with they were originally against it because it has an a cappella beginning. However, Houston and Costner insisted in recording it, and when Parton heard Whitney Houston's version using the Ronstadt recording as a template, she called Foster to give him the final verse, which was missing from the Linda Ronstadt version, which I've never paid attention to be able to tell. I didn't know there was a missing lyric.
There we are. I mean, Dolly likes it when people cover her music. She's into that.
I think that's super cool. And there's like a video of her. Maybe I'll try to find it. There's this one, not like, it's like a Vogue channel, but it's not Vogue. It's just some like famous magazine that I can't think of the name of. Mm-hmm. And they have artists come on and talk. They go through YouTube videos and they listen to other people on YouTube. And this could be low-level YouTubers. It could be high-level YouTubers, whatever. And I think it's really cool. They listen to people do versions of their songs. And Dolly did it once. And she was so supportive of everyone. It was so sweet. Usually, I mean, most of the people are because they're being recorded. But hers seemed very genuine. And she was like, I've never thought to harmonize there. And just like thinking of different things. And it was so adorable.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me with Dolly. As we've covered before, Dolly is the best person in the world.
I mean, me and Tim, I think we've covered that. I think it's been established. Me and Tim's world will end if anything ever happens to Dolly Parton. The podcast will come to a screeching halt for like at least 6 weeks. We'll go into hiding. It'll be a whole thing, everybody.
Well, sadly, one day something will happen to Dolly, and that will be the saddest day ever. And we may have to do 52 Dolly tribute episodes. I don't know. I want that to be a long time from now. Long time. But biology dictates it will happen one day.
And I'll be like, they should have taken me first. If you're listening, whatever's out there, take me first. All right. So the next one, moving along, so we're not as dark, is another song that may play into what Tim was saying. And I didn't think about the physical media thing. They've had more renditions on different forms of physical. See, Tim, it's almost like you're smart sometimes, man. I wouldn't have even thought about that. But this one is Elvis's, and it's Now or Never.
Yeah, that early Elvis was definitely pressed on 78, 100%, because I know people who collect Elvis memorabilia and stuff like that, that Elvis 78s are a thing. But again, I would say that It's Now or Never has probably been on every mainstream format that's ever been out there. And that includes domestic reel-to-reel, MiniDisc, cassette singles. They've even released, for a while they were releasing albums on micro SD cards as well.
It probably had its own hit clips in the 2000s.
Yeah, do you know what? I was not aware of hit clips until there's a guy on YouTube I watch called Tech Mode. And it's a chap called Matt. And what he does, he looks at like some new technology. He'll review headphones or review a new cassette deck that came out or something like that. But he does a lot of retro technology reviews. And he's done a few on 8-tracks recently, and he's done one on Philips Video 2000 video recorder and all that kind of stuff. But he's done a bunch of them about hit clips, and I didn't even know that was a thing. And most people say hit clips is the worst sounding format ever released.
Okay, we're going to get some firsthand knowledge on Joy with her hit. So as a millennial, I was obligated to buy at least 3 hit clips. It was Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, and I don't know, some other band that falls in line with that.
Well, I tell you what, Joy, can you just explain for the listeners who don't know what hit clips are?
So hit clips are these little things. So you would go to like your FYE or your Hot Topic or your Spencer's. For those who are in other countries, it's like an alternative kind of store where super hip teenagers think they're super cool. And it's a little player. It came on a keychain, and you have what looks like kind of like mini tapes or mini CDs. And they were tiny little like computer chip things. I don't even know what media format it was, Tim, to be honest. But you put the little, whatever, let's say it was Britney Spears One More Time. You had like 10, 15 seconds of the song. You put it in there and it would play it. And it sounded like the worst, garbled up, trash version of Toxic by Britney Spears you've ever heard, or Hit Me Baby One More Time, or whatever I said. But it was super cool because you could carry them around. You had them on your keychain, and you just flip between, and then you would be able to buy just the charms, which were like the CDs or the, I have no clue what format. I would say it's probably just like an MP3 on a computer chip. But anyway.
Yeah, so, it's like flash memory storage, like a flash drive. It's that principle. But back when it was released, flash memory was so expensive. That's why the bit rate is so low, because that flash storage was super expensive.
And they were like, so you could get like one that looked like a little mini boombox or a little CD player, or a little vinyl player. You know what I mean, Tim? That was kind of the nostalgic. And it went on your keychain, and you were super cool. Let's say you had your little boombox one, and then you had like 30,000 different songs, but it only played like 15 seconds. And Tim's very right. It sounded like you were playing it through the speaker of like you took a tape recorder, like an actual tape recorder on a tape, recorded a song from the radio, and then hit play. That's what it sounded like.
Well, the ones that I saw Techno play, I think it sounded even worse than that. I mean,
It's
like
been years. I might be being nice, Tim. I don't know.
Yeah, if you go to the thrift shop and buy any vinyl record and then throw it out on asphalt and then skate across the car park with it and then play it, it's probably going to sound better than a hit clip.
Well, to be fair, Tim, it's very nostalgic to me, so I'm probably just remembering the best part.
but yeah, and also, like you say, it was 15 seconds or thereabouts of audio, and they were expensive as well, from what I understand. Each clip was $5 or something like that.
But for some reason, they just hit some market, like, you know, the teenage angst early 2000 going to the Spencer's or the Hot Topic type thing. And they were on your keychain, and you could have just the little player. So usually when you bought one player, you got like 3 hit clips with it. And then you could buy just the hit clips individually, click it on, and then you're like super cool if you got like 80,000 of them or something.
Exactly. And I think there was like a series 2 of hit clips where you could record your own clips. I think that became a thing, like in the next version of the hit clips.
I had pieced out at that point. Hit clips to me are one of those fads that I was involved in, but looking back, I'm like, why? The other one that I was involved in was Furby. And for anyone who doesn't know what a Furby is, they were these little animal type looking monster things. They were small and furry, and they talked to you, and you had to take care of them. And they ended up being the creepiest things in the history of the world, Tim. So me and my twin sister were big Furby fans back whatever Christmas it was, 2000, 1999. Anybody who knows anyone knows Furby's equivalent to Tickle Me Elmo. So we got them. Brittany got I got the Christmas one, and it was red and had a little white beard on it. And Brittany got the baby one. The baby one was even creepier because you had to really take care of it. But like, I swear to you, there's a theory among millennials that even after you rip the batteries out because you got tired a week later, they still talked, Tim, and they still looked at you.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think they It wasn't Bluetooth, but it was like some kind of NFC way that they communicated with each other. And if you had two of them together, they would start talking to each other because
it got weird.
Yeah, because it was some kind of NFC connection that connected the two devices together.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, and there's currently a real trend with you getting old Furbies and do what they call circuit bending, where you make them do things that they're not supposed to do.
See, my husband thought that was cool, Tim, because you know Charlie. He also was looking at what was the bear that talked back in the day?
Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are taking Teddy Ruxpins and doing things with them they're not supposed to, making them say creepy things and do weird stuff. Yeah,
because the original Teddy Ruxpin had a regular audio cassette in the back of it. And like on a regular audio cassette, let's say this is physical media. This is physical media information. Yeah. There we are. So like a regular audio cassette has 4 audio tracks because it plays on side A and side B. So side A is left and right, and then side B is left and right. So there is your 4 tracks. But what you had on Teddy Ruxpin, if you was playing side A on a regular side, there'd be 2 audio tracks left and right. On Teddy Ruxpin, one of those tracks was audio, one of those tracks was data. And it wasn't like computer data like you would get on a audio cassette on a Commodore 64 or an old 8-bit computer. It was a series of pulses, and those pulses would make Teddy Ruxpin's mouth open and close or blink or do all that kind of stuff. And then someone cracked the code of how to do it. And then you can put anything you want audio-wise and get Teddy Ruxpin to sing along and say things he's not supposed to say. But there is a community of people who buy the old Teddy Ruxpins and they put a Raspberry Pi computer in it, and then you can make it do anything you want.
So for those who don't know, we've talked to people who know my husband know this to be true. Tim's seen it firsthand. He's really big into animatronics and programming, stuff like that. And we have 2 Raspberry Pis in my house that have been in various things that have done weird things in my house. I currently have, and Tim can testify to this, a talking Zoltar that plays music, and I programmed it to different lyrics and different things like that. And then like the Zoltar, just Google Zoltar, everybody. I'm not going to get to it. He's like a tarot reading kind of dude that like you've seen him before. And then there's a clown that is very creepy that is in my house. That's also animatronic. So we joke about Charlie being smart at this stuff, but he's the kind of person who would have gotten Teddy Ruxbury and waited to figure out what the pulse was. He also bought something called a Makey that does like circuits, and you can do certain things with different circuits and sounds. So Charlie's really big into that, so that's why I'm familiar with it. But back to the Furbies, Tim. They would wake you up at 3 a.m. and they'd start talking to each other. And if you have never woken up at 11 years old and your Furbies start talking to each other and making weird noises at 3 a.m., you don't know fear.
No, I can get it. Did you ever get into the Tamagotchi?
Yes.
Now, There was a hack with the Tamagotchi. So I know somebody who had a Tamagotchi who had to look after it when his girlfriend went on a school trip or something like that. And you had to interact with them continually to keep them alive or keep them fed and all this kind of stuff. If you went into the menu to set the clock, so you go in as if you're going to set the clock and then like the digit is flashing, it will freeze it.
So Charlie currently has a Tamagotchi that he bought, and guess what he did, Tim? Exactly that. He went on the Google because he thought it was cool. So they were reselling them at like Target, like nostalgia type thing, and he got one for him and Bobby, and then he got tired of it. And he's like, I think there was like a hack back in the day. It still works, everybody, if you buy a modern day one.
Well, there we are, Tamagotchi news, ladies and gentlemen.
We're just bringing in the modern day technology in this podcast. All right. So the next one is one that Tim and me did a whole episode on. It's We Are the World.
There we are. Now, the interesting thing about We Are the World from a physical media perspective, because I've looked into this. And what year was that? 84, 3?
We Are the World. 85.
85. Well, there we go. So you was at the cusp in 85 of the CD becoming mainstream. Of course, CD came out in 82. And then it reached sort of mass market 83, 84. So 85, you're not quite full mass market with the compact disc. So We Are the World was released on 7-inch and 12-inch single. And then there was the We Are the World album. that was released on LP record. They did press some of the We Are the World album, not the single, on CD. And I actually tried to buy it, and they're very expensive and very rare because they were not made in huge quantities. Most people who purchased it around that time who wanted the album would have bought the LP record or cassette.
I mean, that's fair, but I guess it all goes into the single sales, really, right?
It does, but it's just interesting that for something that sold so incredibly widely, something that was so iconic of a time where probably most people were buying that, CD had not got to full mainstream acceptance yet, so most people would have bought the record version of it.
Well, now we know. I wonder, if you could get your hands up. I bet the record version of that would be so expensive, Tim.
It's not because they press millions of.
Never mind.
Yeah, the CD is about $50, $60 if you want to buy it, because I've seen them on Amazon on eBay and Discogs. But the vinyl, you can pick them up for $9, $10 in pretty good condition.
If y'all heard that, I just slammed my hand into the table. I had an injury on air, so ignore that. Whatever Tim was saying is more important. But anyway, Joy just banged her hand straight into the table. So this is a song that I don't know, but it's on here, and it's from the 30s, so that's crazy to me. But it's the Ink Spots If I Didn't Care.
I don't know. 30s, that would have been a 78. But it's not a song that I'm familiar with. Did it sell incredibly well on physical media?
I mean, yeah, it did. But the thing, let me give you the exact numbers. Let me pull in here. But basically, it's from 1939. Let me bring it up. Physical media. I mean, it's in the billions at this point, basically. But I don't know what would have been the 30s. What kind of media would it have been on?
That actually could have been Wax Cylinder.
That's crazy. So it's probably something that's been recorded. I wonder if it's a song that's been used a lot in movies or something. Legacy and Honors. The Gypsy. So they were introduced. The Ink Spots were introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989. They said they were early influenced by Bobby McFerrin. So they must have been more of a jazz kind of thing. But I can't find specifics.
If it's Bobby McFerrin, maybe they were an a cappella group.
When I listened to it, it had music, but that doesn't mean it's not true. They definitely did the doo-wop thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so they still were harmonizing and we're playing on levels. So that makes sense based on what you're saying. But apparently it has 19 million in sales. That is disputed because apparently it goes back into the 30s and there's not 100% solid work. But on this list, it says, I said billions, but it's millions. It's 19 billion in billions. That's all I said. 19 million in sales. So there you go, everybody.
Still sold incredibly well.
Well, they're on this list. And I mean, if you're ranked up there with Whitney Houston and Elton John, I think you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that was one that I did know. Now, this is a song I know Tim is going to know, but this is the one that surprised me. And I have a funny story about when I was reading the comments. It's Yes, Sir, I Can Boogie, the people from Spain. What was their name?
People from Spain?
They're from Spain. The Yes, Sir, I Can Boogie from the 70s. You've heard that song, right? In the UK?
Yeah, Yes, Sir, I Can Boogie.
But their name is like Bccara.
How you say that?
Bacara, I guess.
Bakari? I know the song, but
apparently they're from Spain, yeah.
Okay.
Don't come for our Spanish enunciation, whatever that word is.
See, I don't know.
Tim's like, what? I lost about that. Now, that song I'm very familiar with, but it surprised me that it was on here because it's popular, but I never really thought it was that popular. But when I was reading the comments, it apparently it plays at H&M. If you go into H&M store, every comment was like, it plays every 30 seconds at H&M. And I thought that was weird. I don't know why.
I don't know. I've been to H&M in Roanoke.
Buy pants there.
I've been to H&M in Sweden. And I've been to H&M, I think in England, maybe not. I can't remember. But I've been to H&M many times in the Penn Centre in St. Catharines in Canada, in Ontario. And the only reason I know that is because Hannah likes going into Canadian H&M because they sell different stuff that US H&M do. And she likes the kind of fashions they have, and she always buys stuff in there. However, I've never really noticed what plays in there. So I'm planning a Canada trip at the end of October. So I will be going in and documenting if I hear "Yes, Sir, I Can Boogie."
Well, apparently every comment, and you guys, I will screenshot this on YouTube if I have to, but it's about how they found this song on H&M and they couldn't figure out what it was, so they went looking. I will say, I have been to the H&M in Roanoke, as Tim was just saying, because it's close to us. And I've been to the one in like Winston-Salem and stuff. But the biggest one I've been to is the one in Times Square. Mm-hmm. And I bought my favorite pair of jeans there. I remember this. And one of my favorite pairs of shoes there. That was years ago. And whenever I was there is when Gwen Stefani's The Sweet Escape was everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like literally everywhere. I remember that song playing in H&M. But I don't remember them saying, "Yes, sir, I can boogie." I don't know, Tim. Would you pin this song as being that popular?
Well, I could see it be popular, certainly from a 70s boogie, 70s boogie funk type song. Yeah. But for something that's sold incredibly well and it's in a list of best-selling physical media, that really does surprise me.
The only thing I could think of, and I have not confirmed or denied it because you guys seen how long it took me just to Google what we were talking about a minute ago, is maybe it was used in like a Just Dance video game or something. Do you know what I mean? Or something like there's something that caused a resurgence we're not familiar with.
That's true. It wasn't on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, was it?
No.
No, I didn't think it was. But it's that kind of era. But yeah, it could have been in some video game or something like that.
Well, the other thing I thought of is because it was kind of that Euro disco kind of sound. Maybe it sold really big in other countries too. Like it's one of those songs that played, universally type things. And maybe we're not taking that into account. Maybe it was really popular in Germany and the Netherlands or something.
Well, if it's big in Germany, I'd like to call it Proto Hasselhoff.
Fair enough. I'll give it to you, Tim. But yeah. Apparently it says it only spent a single week at the top of the UK charts in October of 1977. So I'd be curious to know what makes people buy this album, unless there's like some movie me and Tim just don't know.
I mean, you're asking the wrong person when it comes to contemporary TV shows and movies. I have no idea. Well,
for some reason, here we go. Maybe this is it. It was used as a Cadbury Dairy Milk commercial tune.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember, but certainly a Cadbury's Dairy Milk commercial would probably have a lot of wide exposure.
Me over here, Canberry. South, that's a D, everyone. It's not an N. But anyway, well, it says it's 2014, so I guess it would have been after maybe. And then it was used for something with like football teams. I'm not getting into all that. I don't care. But that's all I can see. Oh, there we go. 2022 clothing chain H&M used the song in an advertisement that plays regularly at the store. So it's in 2022. So that's why everybody on the comment thread kept talking about, "Thanks, H&M. I can't get this song out of my head."
There we are.
So maybe that's what it is. All right. The next one is, well, this is going to be no shocker to anyone. It's Celine Dion, "My Heart Will Go On."
Yeah, I mean, that's the song from Titanic. And it's actually on one of those, it's also on those Rolling Stone lists of 20 most annoying songs. And I only know that because I listened to the Rock Solid podcast this morning, and they were going through the 20 most annoying songs according to Rolling Stone. And it's on there. And the host on the show agreed that it probably wasn't annoying. It was just overexposed at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And
I would agree with that.
Yeah, what year was that?
That would have been 1997.
Yeah, again, that's probably one that didn't natively appear on vinyl either. That would have been a cassette and CD release. But that was one of those songs that was certainly in the UK at number one for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And you could not escape that song because Titanic was such a massive, big film. And the song as well, it was everywhere.
Well, and what's interesting about the song and what I think kind of gives it, because, it's supposed to have that dark kind of sound or like a creepy sound to it or whatever. It's an E major, right? And so it falls under, I feel like it's an E major, but then it also has like an A flat kind of thing going for it too, which makes it incredibly hard for normal people to be able to sing it. It kind of solidified Celine Dion's ability to sing what no one else can, right? And then, of course, there's 1,000 versions, but it's that song that everybody's like, a lot of singers are like, I wouldn't touch it. My life depended on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a Celine Dion fan. Hannah cannot stand Celine Dion. Not as a person. She just doesn't like the way she sings or the sound of her voice. Yeah, it's fair enough.
Fair enough.
But it must be said, you listen to Celine Dion sing, she has got a set of pipes like no other. Like the range that she can sing with the power that she can sing is unbelievable.
See, and so my husband, Charlie, he has one artist like that. It's Cher. Charlie hates the way Cher sings. He can't stand the sound of her voice. He knows she sings well, but he just doesn't care for it. So there you go. But yeah, so that one is not probably shocking to anyone who lived any time near 1997. There was no way to get away from that song, that movie, that anything. You have watched Titanic, right, Tim?
Yeah, I may have mentioned on here before, I've seen it once. I saw it on Swedish TV, which was an original UK or English, but with Swedish subtitles. And it was on broadcast TV with commercial breaks. And it made a 2-hour and 20-minute film, 3.5, 4 hours long. And somehow I got through it and I watched the whole thing.
Well, here's the question, Tim. Could they have both fit on the board?
They could, because there's a Mythbusters episode that covers that.
They definitely could have. I mean, it's a missed opportunity. They just let Jack die. I mean, I remember I had to like convince my parents to let me watch it because there was some, non-PG things into it. And I remember, I think I snuck sorry, Mom and Dad, for listening to it. I think the first time I watched it, I wasn't supposed to. Because I would have been 7, Tim. You have to remember these things. All right. So the next one. It's a song. So I saw a meme today and it said, this person is de-thawing already. It is Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Yeah, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
God.
It has become, I say it's become this, but it's in the same category as Wham's Last Christmas. It has become that Christmas song. You cannot escape it. Everyone plays it. Both sides of the Atlantic. Everywhere is that. And, if Mariah Carey never performed ever again, she could live off the royalties of that song forever.
It hits number 1 every year on Christmas.
Oh,
every year.
Absolutely. And, that I'm sure at this point that song has been released on every form of physical media that you could ever imagine.
Well, and she has been known for, I'd have to look it up, but she's got like other things. So like this is like what, number 7 or 8 on the list we've been talking about. But she also is known for like having like the most number 1 hits of all time as a female artist. Like, yeah, here it is. She holds the record for the most number 1 single by a solo female artist and female songwriter and female producer. Carey is the highest certified female artist in the United States with 69.5 million certified album units. She is ranked 2nd on VH1's list of 100 greatest women in music. So say what you want about her, but she still holds that title. That's crazy to me. She's, like you said, Tim, she has to have the money where we were talking about that one guy, Ludacris or whoever it was, could drive out on their property and find a new tennis court. They didn't know where they were or something. Her net worth is, let's just Google it. Let's see. Mariah Carey, right on air, everybody, net worth. I'm curious to know. Because I feel like she's also like wrote and collaborated, you know what I mean? $320 million as of 2022.
Well, that's not too bad. Good luck to you, Mariah.
I mean, it seems, I mean, it's not that big, right, Tim? Like, that's not a lot.
Nah, I mean.
Anyway, I can't. Oh, this is a song that I could deal with never hearing again. I'm not even going to lie. It's Bryan Adams, Everything I Do It For You.
Yes, no, this song, I remember when this was in the charts. What year is this? 90-something or other?
91.
Yeah, there we are. I remember when that was in the charts. It's from the film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And it was, I still think to this day, it is the song which has been at number 1 the longest amount of time. There was a song that was preceded that from like the 50s or the 60s. I forget what it was. But Bryan Adams broke the record, and it was for like 3 months or something. It was at number one. You could not escape that. It was everywhere. And then when it finally stopped being number one, collectively, the people of the UK breathed a sigh of relief.
So here is the actual numbers. This is a long paragraph because it's not just the UK, it's the United States, it's other countries. So anyway, the song was an enormous chart success internationally, reaching number one position on the music charts at least 19 countries, notably exceptions in the Western world being Italy, number 3, Spain, number 4. It's particularly notable for its success in the UK. So that's where Tim was talking about, where it spent 16 consecutive weeks at number 1. The longest uninterrupted run ever on the chart as of 2022, so this year. It topped the UK worldwide sales chart for 18 continuous weeks. And in the United States, it topped the Billboard 100, which combines radio, airplay, and sales for 7 weeks, but stayed at number 1 for 17 weeks on the sales only chart. It went on to sell more than 15 million copies worldwide, making it Adam's most successful song and one of the best-selling singles of all time. The song has been covered by hundreds of singers and artists worldwide.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me. I just remember it. You could not escape that anywhere.
And he does have a beautiful voice. He's Bryan Adams is Canadian, I think.
Mm-hmm. He is the groover from Vancouver, no less.
Well, whatever Tim just said. I mean, he's a wonderful singer. He's got a great voice, but cuts like a knife, that kind of thing. We all know him very well. But yeah, that song is one that if I didn't hear it again, Tim, I wouldn't complain.
Yeah, I would not be sad if it evaporated from the midst of time.
All right, so these are the ones with at least 50 million copies or more is what we're talking about right now. This is physical copies. The next one is somebody who sadly we talked about recently because she passed away. It's Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta's "You're the One That I Want" from Grease.
Yeah, I would imagine that would have sold very well at the time, coming from the film Grease. And I'm assuming the bulk of those sales will be 7-inch singles around that time.
So in the United States, so it says 15 million copies sold overall. So 15 million. It was written by John Ferrer. Don't know who that is. But basically, for those who are not familiar with the movie Grease, it's in there. You're the One That I Want. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of like the finale of the movie. They're singing it together. They're going back and forth. They're in the little fair carnival thing at school. And they're telling them, "You're the one that I want." But I mean, it's very 70s pop. Went very well with kind of, how the Bee Gees did the opening kind of song Grease and things like that. It played very well into that. The only song that, I know Farrah wrote also "Hopelessly Devoted to You," which we talked about when we talked about Olivia Newton-John, is a gorgeous song as well. Mm-hmm. But it's also in the stage musical version of Grease too. So it stays, it's been done many times by not even just Olivia Newton-John, but everybody who's done a stage version of Grease.
Absolutely. And I have got chills, and they are indeed multiplying.
Okay, well, moving along, everyone.
Actually, here's a Grease question for you.
Yeah.
In the UK, in the late 90s, I think it was, there was the Grease Megamix, which charted. Was that a thing here?
Oh, absolutely. And, I have a story for you. So when I was in high school, my mom, I've talked about this many times, my mom's a big disco fan, which is fine with me. I like my disco. I'm not judging her for liking disco. But on Saturday night, there was a channel. Have you ever heard of Delilah, Tim? Do you know Delilah, the radio singer, radio person?
No, I know Delilah as in the song by Tom Jones, but no.
Okay, so there's this. If you Google her, she comes up. She's on national, and she might be international now. Her name's Delilah, and she does these sappy stories where people call in and talk to her on the radio. My mom listened to Delilah on 99.1, which Tim's from this area. He's at least heard 99.1 before. On Saturday nights, they had their disco nights. And every Saturday night, if my mom was taking me to the roller skating rink or whatever, because I would roller skate from like 7 p.m. till probably, we wouldn't get home till maybe like 11:30. It was the weekend. That darn mega mix played every Saturday night of my life. That and Donna Summer's Hot Stuff played nonstop. Ring My Bell also played. And I remember my mom being like, yeah, I remember when this song came out. It was kind of controversial. And as a kid, I never quite understood it. And then as I got older, I listened to the lyrics of Ring My Bell and I'm like, makes sense.
Yeah.
And then Disco Duck also played nonstop on that disco channel I had to listen to as a kid. And I have very distinct memories of like if we went to watch the fireworks or something at like midnight, July 4th, New Year's, Mom would always have the disco channel on. So there's many times in my life I've been watching fireworks go off and either the Mega Mix was playing or Disco Duck was in the background. So yes, Tim, it did chart here. I've heard it many times.
I have a particular memory with that song too. So I played a gig with the Guilty Party many years ago at an army base in Sandhurst in the UK. And it was the army equivalent of like a freshers ball, if you will. It was people who were like new recruits and they were having they'd been through their basic training or whatever, and they were having like a party to celebrate that. And normally we went out with the Guilty Party. It was like a show band with a brass section. It was a really good band. And normally we would run the disco. This was at a time when I was not doing that stuff. And it was the bass player, Richard, who would run the disco. And his tracks he would play were all in that kind of stuff that you would imagine pop disco tracks. And it went over pretty well. He had a bunch of tracks that he liked and it went really well. Mm-hmm. This time, no. He figured as it was a big gig, let's get a DJ in to do it.
God.
And he picked this guy called DJ Sugar. That was the guy's name, DJ Sugar. And he was one of these sort of DJs who didn't play predictable, cheesy hits that everyone wants to dance to. He bought his turntables, his Technics 1210s. He bought his records and he's got his one headphone over one ear and he's winding them backwards and winding them forwards and doing his scratching and beat matching and all that kind of stuff. And it's fair to say the dance floor was empty. Not only wasn't the dance floor empty, the people who booked the band started to complain heavily with what is this? So,
awkward.
So about 25 minutes into DJ Sugar's set, somebody went up to DJ Sugar in the band and did that action. I'm showing Joy that goes like that.
Yeah. Cut it off.
Yep. So it went off. There was a cheer from the crowd.
Oh, poor DJ Sugar.
And the trusty Guilty Party CD player, CD deck thing came out. And what went on? The Grease Megamix, and everyone had the best time they've ever had.
I will say, I do like the Grease Megamix. It's pretty cool. I get it. Poor DJ Sugar. If you're listening, man, we'll let you come on and do some tracks or something.
Yeah, I wonder what ever became of DJ Sugar. I know that he was paid off and then evaporated. I know, and was never seen again, so I don't know.
It sounds like he's an actual disc jockey, not just somebody who pushes buttons.
Yeah, he was doing all that kind of stuff, but maybe that would have worked well in a London club, but for the kind of folks that were there, they wanted that and I Will Survive, not that what he was playing.
They wanted to electric slide, Cupid Shuffle, YMCA their way out the door, Tim, and I don't judge them.
100%.
Which is fine, because I'm that person too. When you go to those events and you're expecting that kind of DJ, that's just what you're expecting. And if you have a good DJ, they know to cut those songs because they last very long. I have been to parties where they have not cut them and you about have a heart attack by the time you're done wobbling and YMCAing it. But anyway, all right. So I think we have time for a few more.
Yeah, why don't you do one more, and then I have a little question and answer session for you.
Ooh, okay. So this is something that I'm not even going to try to say because it's in Yiddish, which is random as no other. But we've talked about this band many times. It's the Andrews Sisters. Mm-hmm. It's BEI Merbis, something in Yiddish, everyone. It means to me, you are beautiful. Okay. So it was the next one in the list. Now, the Andrews Sisters, we've talked about, they were like taken over by the Spice Girls as the highest grossing girl band of all time. Mm-hmm. Like they're worth a lot of money. And they're also known for, there's a lot of modern day, like Christina Aguilera did an album. I'm sure if I could think of them off my head to kind of copy their like thing and do like a whole album dedicated to that kind of doo-wop meets 1930s Andrews Sister sound, right? Mm-hmm. It's so iconic that everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, I've heard them cited as an influence by lots of contemporary artists, and like you say, their music has been covered by lots of artists, through the ages, even up to the present day.
I mean, you've got things like, Bette Midler, I think, did some versions of it. Patti LaBelle. I know Christina Aguilera did an album. Any modern day kind of a cappella like Pentatonics or whatever would have kind of taken that because they were such good harmonies. But also it wasn't just the singing, it's the clothing, it's the this, it's the that, right? It's like the whole look of it made them who they are. And of course, their number one song being the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. But apparently they did this song that is in Yiddish. The name of it's in Yiddish. I don't know if the whole song's in Yiddish, but basically it means, to me, you are beautiful. It says written by Jacob Jacobs and composer Solomon Skinner in 1932. It was a Yiddish language comedy musical. If I would, I could. So there you go. That's where it comes from. The song became a worldwide hit, recognized by the Andrews Sisters under a Germanized title. Oh, apparently that's not Yiddish. Apparently the Burmese, whatever I was trying to say a minute ago, is German. But it was originally Yiddish. So don't come from the internet. I don't speak either of those languages. So yeah, I've never heard this song. Well, it could be something maybe I've heard and I just don't recognize.
I think if you heard, I'm not super familiar with it. I'm sure if you heard the melody, you'd be like, oh, It's that one.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It became a global phenomenon, is what it's saying. Within 30 days, the Andrews Sisters version, a number one hit, recorded covers by multiple people. So that could be part of the reason why it was so popular. Ella Fitzgerald did a version. The Berry Sisters did a version. Betty Goodman did a version, so on and so forth.
There we go.
All right, Tim, what's your question and answer?
Okay, so following on from the theme of this episode, which is top-selling artists on physical media, I'm going to ask Joy whether she has either purchased or owned various pieces of physical media.
All right.
And these are the ones I can think of on the top of my head. This is not a comprehensive list.
All right, fair enough.
Okay. Wax cylinder.
No.
45 RPM single.
Yes.
33 RPM album.
No.
I can answer that for you. The answer is yes, because you've got albums everywhere. I gave you a load.
That's true. I'm like, no, yes. What am I saying? I'd like, do I own these things? Tim threw me for a loop, everybody. I was not expecting that. Okay. So the answer is yes.
Yes. 78 RPM record.
I don't know, Tim, do I?
No, you would have to have a special stylus or a special record player. So no, you probably wouldn't have.
He's throwing me for a loop here. I'm thinking these are like things that I'm like, does it sound like this is from the 90s? I don't know. Maybe yes. No, the answer is no.
Audio cassette tape.
Definitely have owned that before. Correct.
Okay. A flexi disc.
No.
A compact disc.
Obviously.
A mini disc.
I have owned that before.
Songs that came on a micro SD card.
I mean, I put songs on a micro SD card.
but not one that you purchased.
No.
Okay. Digital audio tape. DAT.
Maybe?
No, you wouldn't have.
It doesn't sound familiar. Tim's testing me, y'all. I have no clue what that even means. Continue. What's the next one?
Reel to reel.
No.
And finally, Laserdisc.
Yes.
You had a Laserdisc player. Really? Do you know what Laserdisc is?
Maybe I don't know what it is.
Laserdisc.
That's not what I thought he was asking.
Laserdisc is something from the late 70s, and it's the same size as a 12-inch record, but it looks like a massive compact disc.
No, did not have that. That's not what I thought that was.
Well, this game fell completely flat on its feet because
I think we should
half of
cut
the things you didn't even know what they were.
I thought I was like, is this the name of an album? No. Yes. Maybe. I was like, the first two I knew, and then when you got to the third one, Tim's like, really? And I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about anymore. No, I don't have that. And he's like, yes, you do, Joy. You've owned a CD. Well, Tim is the king of physical media. I'm not.
Yeah. Have you ever owned a 44.1 kilohertz Redbook standard optical disc?
I doubt it.
It's a CD, Joy, for goodness sake.
Why,
I'm just pulling your leg at this point.
I'm just going to say yes to everything and then let Tim debate it later. I'm like, a Laserdisc. That's just like a fancy CD name brand. No, Joy. Okay, never mind.
Don't you remember? I mean, you probably don't remember Laserdisc, but did you know anyone that had one? It was before DVDs were invented.
Probably. And it came out in the late seen it before.
Yeah, it came out in sort of the late 70s, early 80s.
It seems familiar to me. My parents might have even had one.
Yeah, it looked like a massive compact disc, but it was 12 inch. And the video wasn't encoded digitally, it was encoded analog, but it was read with a laser.
Mm-hmm. No, that does sound very familiar to me, Tim. So there may have been one in my household. I'm not going crazy here, but I've never watched or listened to anything on it. So, but I will say, I mean, I'm very familiar with an 8-track tape, everyone. And I remember the original cassettes. And I do own CDs and I do own vinyl. Now, Tim is getting me with the first two. I've heard those before. And I'm like, yes. The third one, I have no clue what that was. Apparently, I do own it, according to Tim. And the rest, well, it's debatable if I answered correctly or not.
Well, I think what we're going to do, Joy, is after we finish this record, I will give you make like a slideshow with some slides and say, and Joy, this is a DAT tape, and this.
I feel like I'm going to do on the next end of the next episode, I'm going to make Tim name every Spice Girls song that he's ever heard as a favorite. But I did pick the physical media episode in honor of Tim's love of physical media. So it's fair that he did that.
There we are. It must be said, my love of physical media is mostly compact disc, a little bit of records, and basically nothing else. I never really got into cassette tapes. Some people loved cassette tapes, and in fact, there is a whole community out there right now people who love tapes, and their name, their collective name, they're called tape heads. If you're into tapes, and a lot of releases these days are being released on cassette for collectability, because some people buy them just to have them as a collector, but for folks who are into cassettes, and it's had a revival, not as big as vinyl, but it has had a revival.
Well, I mean, next thing you know, they'll cost $8 instead of $2.
I mean, if you buy, I don't know, whatever comes out on cassette, they're expensive.
I mean, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. There's something very nostalgic about it right now, and there's a big obsession with the 90s. Now, for me, when I think of cassettes, I have a very distinct memory. My parents had a very big, and it was very classic. I talked about it a few episodes ago. One of those classic sound systems that everybody grew up with in the 90s that had a vinyl player on top. So it had a record player on top. And then it had a CD player and it had a cassette player. And you could record on it, things like that. And I have very distinct memories of recording on that specific radio. Whatever I wanted to hear. I would get my cassette out and I would physically wait for the guy to stop talking when someone requested a song and record it. So that's what I think of when I think of. So maybe that could be part of it. There's people like me who grew up doing that. So Charlie also thinks it'd be cool if we did an episode, Tim, where me or you or both of us go to the store and we try to get like either. He said specifically a cassette, but we could do CDs that someone has made themselves and be surprised what's on it.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, you occasionally see mix CDs in thrift shops. Very occasionally, where people have burned their own CDs and they've printed the track listing off of iTunes. But I think if you dug hard enough, you would probably find better mixtapes out there. The problem is I don't have a cassette deck because I decided when I wanted to get back into physical media, I was not going to embrace the world of cassettes.
Well, Tim, I have one. I will let you borrow it if we ever decide to go this route. My problem would be is we would do it and like every tape would be like polka music that I haven't heard or something. You know what I mean, Tim? Like there'd be nothing for us to talk about because we wouldn't know any of the songs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, if you pull out some cassette that was recorded in 1978 that you found in a thrift shop and it's still played, and it's like, who knows what's on it?
It'd be Polka and Barbara Streisand or something. Who knows?
Exactly. No, to be fair, it's a good topic, though. I think it may go down in history much like our quiz episode that will never see the light of day.
Fair enough. Well, everybody can laugh at me because Tim was looking at me. He started laughing on the third one because I looked at him and I was like, no. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, no. Y'all can laugh at my ignorance when it comes to physical media later. But with that, I think that's everything, right, Tim?
Absolutely. Do you have any final comments before we leave?
Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To remind me of another day to come.